Hello, welcome to Helping Your Child Cope During COVID. I'm Lauren Lyman. Again, I'm an occupational therapist. I have a background in psychology. I work with physical, mental, spiritual, emotional health. I work with social relationships and family dynamics, and I am a holistic health and wellness coach. So my company is called The Lyman Effect. If you are interested in learning more, feel free to visit my website at thelymanaffect.com or email me with any questions at thelymanaffect@gmail.com. So let's get started. For the first section of this video, we're just setting the scene. This is the overview of how the presentations are going to go. Setting the scene today, we're going to start with changes, what kind of changes your child is going through right now, resulting emotions and symptoms. Emotionally, what are they experiencing, and what physical symptoms may they have due to these emotions. We're going to talk about threats versus challenges and defense mechanisms versus coping strategies, and this all shapes your child's behavior. Part 1, which will be in the next segment, we'll talk about how you can help your child. Part 2 will be stress management lessons for both the parent or the guardian and the child. And part 3 is stress management and relaxation techniques for the parent and the child. So things that you can practice together, figure out what your style is, what you like, what you don't like, and what can help you manage your emotions and your stress. So right now we're just setting the scene. So, changes. What is your child going through right now? Well, their schedule or their routine is probably a little bit different, right? So, some kids are going to school part-time, some kids are not going to school at all, some kids are going to school, but when they're in school, they have to stay in their classrooms, they're not having physical education, art, going to the cafeteria for lunch, things like that. So, there's a lot of disruption in the schedule and the routine. If they are at home, parents may be working, guardians may be working, and it may be hard for them to sit on the computer for 8 hours a day if that's what their classroom is looking like right now. So it's a major disruption. It's something totally different that they're going through right now. And that includes the environmental changes. So again, if a child is going from being at school all day to being home all day, now they're in a different environment. Now they're sitting in front of a screen for 8 hours, which has its own challenges on the body. And that's a total shift. It's something very different that the child is not used to. Socialization is going to be different. So if they're not in school, they're not interacting with their peers as much. They may be typing to them on their, on their online classes. They may be calling them after school or whatever, but there's not that interaction and there's not that physical component either, that high five when they get to school or a hug or, whatever, however they interact with each other. If they are in school, there's limitations on sharing toys for younger kids, or for older kids, as I said, maybe they're not going to physical education because they may not have the space for social distancing. So socialization is completely different. And even if you look at outside of friendships and you look at going to the store, people wearing masks, that's different. That's something different for a child that may be a little confusing to them. Not being able to understand someone because they have a mask covering their mouth. Not being able to see somebody smile. Not being able to just look at someone's lips, see someone's whole face. It's a totally different interaction than we're used to. And it may seem small to some people, but it really is a huge shift. And it causes a lot of emotional challenges. We are dealing with fear, we're dealing with anxiety, we're dealing with stress. Parents and guardians who work and are trying to manage e-learning or homeschooling or whatever, that is a lot of stress on the parent, a lot of stress on the guardian, which then causes stress to the child. So again, it's really important that we're working with our children on this so that we can manage our own stress and help them manage their stress. And dealing with big emotions. There's going to be a lot of different emotions that people are not used to, a lot of different resulting behaviors that parents may not be used to. So I just want to go through everything and explain what is going on. So, resulting emotions and symptoms. So if you've ever heard of fight or flight, or fight, flight, or freeze, that's our body's reaction to stress. Originally, that reaction to stress was physical stress. If we're out in the world, out in the environment, in nature, and there's a bear coming at us, we're either going to try to fight that bear, we'll get overexcited, or we're going to run away, or freeze, where we're underexcited. And that causes physical symptoms. And these physical symptoms are put in place because it helps the body produce certain hormones, focus on certain areas to prepare for possible, danger, trauma, things like that. Well, fast forward to now in modern world, that mechanism is still there. So when we're dealing with emotional stress, our bodies respond the same way as if we were dealing with that physical stress or that emotional stress of the bear. So when we're dealing with all of these changes going on right now, we're dealing with changes in environment, changes in rules, changes in interaction, stress and anxiety about what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to behave, what's okay, what's not okay, am I going to get someone sick? All of that can cause physical symptoms too, because our body's innate mechanism is still working in the same way. So what does that look like? Well, anger, anxiety, boredom, depression, fatigue, fear, helplessness, hopelessness, irritability, isolation, loneliness, low motivation, panic, or again with the anxiety, restlessness, sadness, stress, worry. Those are the emotions. I'm sure you felt some. I know your child feels some, so you probably relate to those a little bit. But what some people don't realize is that emotions have physical effects on the body. So aches and pains, unexplained aches and pains. I don't know why I'm so sore, why I'm so tired. Behavioral changes, changes in appetite and weight. Whether that's you're eating more, comfort eating, right? Or you're eating less, you're just like, I don't even feel hungry. And then that causes weight gain or weight loss. Difficulty focusing on tasks. Your mind is so distracted, you're having trouble focusing. Headaches, memory impairment, nausea, upset stomach. This is especially common with kids. So if your child is constantly complaining of an upset stomach, no, they might not have IBS. They might, irritable bowel syndrome or something like that. And that may be what they get diagnosed with. But a lot of times it's emotional. A lot of children feel emotions in their stomach where, they're stressed, they have anxiety, and then rather than being able to identify that stress and anxiety is there, they get a tummy ache and they'll complain of a tummy ache. Panic attacks, you may get sick more often or have a weakened immune system. So having all of these strong emotions, these emotions that were meant to be short-term when you're fighting off a bear, if these become long-term chronic emotions like anxiety and stress, over time, that weakens your immune system. When you're so focused on the anxiety and the stress of that bear in front of you, you don't need your immune system to be working right now because you have to fight that bear. But again, in modern times, our bodies never adapted to deal with these emotions that come along with civilization. So our immune system shuts off to deal with these emotions, and then we're making ourselves more susceptible to getting sick. You could also have sleeplessness or insomnia, teeth clenching or grinding your teeth, and you may become socially withdrawn. So this is not an exhaustive list of emotions and symptoms, but these are very common ones. There may be other ones that you and or your child are experiencing. They're all very normal, very natural, but they're not healthy. So we need to work together, come up with some ways to help your family so that you can combat some of these emotions that are causing poor health or causing these negative symptoms on your body. So let's talk a little bit about threat versus challenge. So a threat is when your demands, what is being demanded of you and your body, are higher than the resources you have to deal with these demands. That's a threat, and that causes tension, it causes weakness, it causes immune dysfunction, it causes illness, all these different bad things that we don't want. It causes maladaptive behavior too. So we want our resources, our coping strategies, our support system, basically we want to feel like we have the resources to deal with the demands in our life, in our environment. And when our resources supersede those demands, then it's a challenge. And challenge is good. We want to challenge ourselves. We don't want to feel threatened. We want to feel challenged so that we feel that we can combat this and we can overcome it. So that is the goal of these videos, to get your resources through the roof so that these demands are smaller and you can be challenged rather than threatened, and you can overcome these challenges for you and your family. All right, defense mechanisms versus coping strategies. So again, when you feel threatened, when you do not have the resources to cope with what's going on in your life, that results in these innate defense mechanisms to come up, and they're usually pretty maladaptive. So that's what we would consider our bad behavior. It's a reaction to an emotion. It's a reaction to an occurrence in your life. It results in uncertainty. You don't know what's going on. You don't know how to deal with it appropriately. You don't have the available tools to rise up to the challenge and overcome it. You are attempting self-preservation. It's your body's natural way to just, I have to do something. I don't know what to do, but I have to do something. And it just reacts. And it's usually pretty damaging. It's not good for you. Like I said, it's maladaptive behavior. So if your child seems to be acting up more than usual, it's probably because they don't have the coping strategies to rise to the challenge. Their resources do not exceed the demands of what's going on right now. That's not a good thing. That's something we need to work on then, right? So coping strategies, that's a good thing. That's when you have the tools, you have the resources to deal with your demands in your environment. You're rising to the challenge. So that's your good behavior. And rather than just this quick reaction or response to something, it's a choice. It's something that you say, okay, this is what's going on around me. This is what I can do about it. It's an actual thought process, whether it's you consciously sitting there being like, okay, this is what I need to do. I need to try this. I know I feel this way, but I should act this way. It could be that conscious thought, or it could be subconsciously something that you do automatically. And that's great, because that means that these coping strategies are so ingrained in you and you've practiced them so much that they become second nature. And that's the goal. And if you are in this mode of defense mechanism, whether it's you, your child, that's okay, because if you learn these coping strategies and you practice them, they will become second nature, and it will be easier and more automatic to use them. So that thought process will be less conscious, more subconscious going on in the background. You have the available tools, you reach into your toolbox, you take out the coping strategy that works best for this current situation. It's your attempt at productivity. So rather than self-preservation, this desperate attempt to get by in life, it's your attempt to take something negative and turn it into something positive, to take whatever bad is going on in your life and to make something good of it. It's productive. And it's healing. So rather than damaging you, where you're stuck in this downward spiral of maladaptive behavior, it's healing, because you are rising to the challenge and you're overcoming it, and that feels good. So that's where we want to be. That's where we want our family to be. That's what we want our children to learn. And that is what we're going to teach them through all of these videos. So that's the end of the first introduction. We'll get into part 1, how can you help your child, in the next set of videos.